From the very beginning, no one expected anything unusual to happen that day. The schedule was tight, the atmosphere was routine, and everyone on set was focused on getting through the scenes as planned. Lena and Miu had worked together long enough to know their rhythm: professional, calm, efficient. Nothing about the call sheet suggested that this would be a day fans would still be talking about months later. And yet, something shifted. It didn't start with a dramatic line or a sudden confession. It began with a small, almost invisible change in energy. A pause that lingered longer than expected. A look exchanged without dialogue. At first, even the crew didn't register it as anything meaningful. Moments like that happen all the time in production. Actors adjust. Emotions fluctuate. Scenes evolve. But this one didn't pass. When the cameras rolled, Lena delivered her lines as written, but there was an added softness in her tone, something not marked in the script. Miu responded instinctively, not by changing his dialogue, but by slowing down. His reaction came a fraction of a second later than rehearsed, as if he needed that extra beat to process what he was seeing rather than what he was supposed to perform. That beat changed everything. The director didn't call cut. No one interrupted. The scene continued, shaped by something real rather than planned. And those few seconds, barely noticeable on paper, became the heart of the moment. People watching live monitors felt it first. Not excitement, not shock, just a quiet awareness that something authentic was unfolding. It wasn't romantic in a loud way. It wasn't dramatic. It was honest. And honesty has a weight that's hard to ignore. After the take ended, there was a brief silence. Not the awkward kind, but the kind that happens when everyone knows they've just witnessed something unexpected. Someone eventually asked if they should do another take. The director shook their head. Let's keep that. That decision would later spark endless discussions online. When the episode aired, fans immediately sensed it. Social media filled with comments from viewers who couldn't explain what they were reacting to, only that they felt it deeply. People replayed the scene over and over, trying to pinpoint the exact moment where it shifted. Was it Lena's expression? Was it Miu's hesitation? Was it the silence between the lines? The truth was, it was all of it, and none of it could be isolated. Fans began sharing clips, slowing them down, analyzing micro-expressions. But the more they studied it, the clearer it became that this wasn't something you could dissect. It was something you either felt or you didn't. And most people felt it. What made the moment even more powerful was what happened afterward. There was no fan service, no teasing interviews, no exaggerated reactions from Lena or Miu. They didn't try to explain it. In interviews, when asked about that particular scene, both brushed it off gently. Lena mentioned that sometimes emotions align naturally. Miu said that when you trust your co-star, you follow the moment instead of the script. Neither said more than that. Neither denied anything. Neither leaned into the attention. That restraint only fueled the conversation. Fans respected it. In an industry where moments are often over-explained or marketed to exhaustion, their silence felt intentional, protective, as if they understood that naming the moment might break its spell. Behind the scenes, crew members later shared subtle details. How the atmosphere on set shifted after that day. How Lena and Miu didn't suddenly become louder or closer, but somehow more in sync. Scenes required fewer takes. Emotional beats landed faster. Communication became almost wordless. It wasn't dramatic. It was efficient. And it was telling. Viewers noticed the difference in later episodes. The connection didn't spike and disappear. It settled. It became steady, grounded, as if both actors had unlocked a deeper understanding of each other's emotional timing. That's why fans say this moment changed everything. Not because it turned into a scandal. Not because it confirmed rumors, but because it redefined how people saw Lena and Miu together. They weren't just performing alongside each other anymore. They were responding, listening, allowing space. And that kind of connection can't be manufactured. Even people who weren't invested at first found themselves pulled in. Comments came from casual viewers saying they didn't plan to care this much, that they couldn't explain why the scene stayed with them, that it felt personal, almost intrusive, like watching something meant to remain private. And maybe that's why it resonated so strongly, because it wasn't planned. It wasn't highlighted. It wasn't explained. It simply happened. And sometimes, the moments that change everything are the ones no one was trying to create. As time passed, the moment didn't fade the way most viral scenes do. It didn't get replaced by a newer clip or drowned out by louder headlines. Instead, it settled into people's minds, resurfacing quietly in conversations weeks later, then months later, as if it had marked a turning point no one could quite let go of. Fans began noticing how everything that came after felt subtly different. Scenes between Lena and Miu didn't rely on intensity anymore. They didn't need heightened music cues or dramatic framing to feel meaningful. Even the simplest interactions carried weight. A shared glance across a room, a brief smile that disappeared just as quickly, a silence that felt intentional rather than empty. Viewers found themselves leaning in, afraid to miss something that might never be repeated. What stood out most was how neither Lena nor Miu tried to recreate that original moment. There was no chasing it, no exaggeration, no attempt to top it. They didn't turn it into a pattern or a performance, and that restraint made every interaction that followed feel earned rather than forced. It was as if both understood that the power of that moment came from its spontaneity, and trying to reproduce it would only weaken it. Behind the scenes, the change was subtle but undeniable. Crew members noticed that Lena and Miu communicated less verbally. They didn't need long discussions before takes. A nod, a glance, a shared understanding was enough. Emotional scenes flowed faster, not because they rushed, but because they trusted each other to land in the same place without explanation. Directors adjusted too. They gave them more space, fewer instructions, longer takes. When something works organically, the smartest thing to do is not interfere. And that's exactly what happened. The production didn't revolve around their connection, but it respected it. Fans picked up on that respect immediately. Online discussions shifted from speculation to appreciation. People stopped asking, "Is this real?" and started saying, "This is rare." Viewers talked about how refreshing it was to see two performers allowed to exist naturally without being pushed into exaggerated narratives. The story stopped being about what Lena and Miu were to each other and became about what they created together. A sense of safety. That's the word many fans used. They said watching their scenes felt safe. Not predictable, but grounded. There was no emotional manipulation, no sudden twist designed to shock. Just two people responding honestly in the moment. In a media landscape full of excess, that simplicity felt radical. Interviews continued, but carefully. When Lena was asked how she approached later scenes, she spoke about listening more than performing, about allowing silence to guide emotion instead of dialogue. Miu echoed similar thoughts in a separate interview, mentioning how rare it is to feel completely unguarded in front of the camera. Neither referenced that original moment directly, but the way they spoke around it made its influence clear. Fans noticed something else too. There was no defensiveness. When rumors surfaced, as they always do, neither actor rushed to shut them down, nor did they encourage them. Their calm neutrality set the tone. It told people that whatever existed didn't need validation from outsiders. And strangely, that confidence made fans even more protective. People began saying things like, "Let them keep this," and "some things shouldn't be dissected." That reaction was telling. Usually, viral moments invite ownership. Fans want answers, labels, access. This one inspired restraint. It made people want to preserve the feeling rather than consume it. Even critics acknowledged it. Reviews began pointing out the understated emotional core of the show, often highlighting Lena and Miu scenes as anchors. Not because they were flashy, but because they felt lived in. Real. The kind of realism that doesn't announce itself, but slowly pulls you under. And perhaps the most remarkable part of all was how this moment didn't change who Lena and Miu were individually. They didn't alter their public personas. They didn't lean into mystery or distance. They continued their work as they always had, professional, focused, grounded. The difference wasn't in how they presented themselves, but in how audiences perceived them. They were no longer just performers delivering a story. They were collaborators who trusted each other enough to let something unplanned exist. That trust is fragile, rare, and impossible to fake. Which is why, even now, people still return to that scene. Not to analyze it frame by frame anymore, but to feel it again. To remind themselves that in a world of scripts, edits, and expectations, something genuine slipped through untouched. It wasn't planned. It wasn't announced. It wasn't explained. But it changed everything because it reminded people that the most powerful moments are often the ones no one tries to create.